2.4, we're going to multiply and divide rational numbers. So basically we're talking about fractions. So with adding and subtracting, we need common denominators. We don't need those multiplying and dividing. Okay? So if we want to use diagrams, we need to have our diagrams in the exact same format. So this is just using diagrams to add. So this will be common denominators. What they're using, the denominator is 5, and shaded 1 piece out of 5. So if you add them up, I've got how many shaded pieces? I would have 3 out of 5 pieces shaded. Okay, so that's where we're doing. Now, that's just simply adding with a diagram. We're going to multiply with a diagram. Now, when you multiply with a diagram, you do what's called double shading. So, if you wanted to multiply 1/4 times 2/3, you would first just make a rectangle of any kind. Then you would divide it up into 3 sections and you'd shade 2 of them. Okay? So they shaded the 2 sections. Now, from that same diagram, you've got to shade 1/4. So that means you've got to divide it into 4 parts. So they divided it into 4 vertical parts. And then they only shaded 1 out of 4 of those vertical parts. So they shaded this whole vertical part. Now to find the answer, we're looking for the double shaded region. Which part is double shaded? Right there is double shaded. So I have 2 squares out of how many that are double shaded? I have 2 squares out of 12 that are double shaded, which is going to reduce to how many? 1 in 6. Okay, so I had 2 and 12. Now it reduces to 1 and 6. Okay? Alright, let's take a look at actual rules. So it tells us the number of squares is equal to the product of the denominators. So those squares, when we take a look at those denominators that we multiply, if we were to multiply those denominators right here, that 3 and that 4, what's 3 times 4? 12. So that's where we got our 12 squares in this diagram is what it's telling us here. Okay? It says then the number of squares shaded in the opposite directions is the top ones being multiplied, 1 times 2. Okay? And then all you're doing is reducing it after. Now, there's 3 simple steps to multiply. Multiply top numbers and numerators, so multiply across, top to top, multiply bottom to bottom across, and then you reduce, always, simplify your fraction. Now, multiply your fractions, we're doing an example down here. We'll talk about dividing in a moment. So, multiply, it says, you multiply numerators, you multiply denominators. Basically, like I show you straight across. So that's what they're showing us here that they've done. And then 2 times 5 is 10, and 21. Now, what is that strategy we looked at yesterday to simplify? Cross-canceling, cross-simplify. So, cross-canceling, remember, you're trying to divide out a common factor. So, let's just look diagonally and see if there's anything that we can divide out. So, between the 5 and the 3, is anything in common between 5 and 3? No, they're both small. We can't divide anything out. What about 2 and 7? No, can't do anything with those either. So that means the answer we're going to get is in simplest form. We can't cross-simplify here. Okay? Not always. Sometimes you still have to reduce. But typically, that's why we cross-simplify. So, let's take an example. So it says here, when multiplying an integer, what if you don't have fraction times fraction? What if you have an integer or a whole number times a fraction? Well, we make that integer or whole number become a fraction by putting what underneath it? 1. So any digit can always be put in fraction form by putting a 1 on the bottom. Okay, that's super important. Alright, let's take a look at the dividing fractions rule. So if you look at the rules, it told us that we are going to reciprocate. Reciprocate means flip the fraction that's after the divide sign. So this guy right here, he's the one after the divide sign. He's the one that's going to get flipped upside down. The guy in front doesn't change. He stays the same. Okay? Now, the divide, the symbol division, changes now to multiply. And then you're back to multiplying rules. So this symbol here changed to a multiply now. So now we just multiply tops, multiply your bottoms, and then simplify. So 3 times 5 gave us our 15, 4 times 2 gave us our 8, and that was as low as it goes. It doesn't reduce. Okay? All right, so the flipped fraction is called the reciprocal. That's a super important thing. They also call it reciprocate. You're going to see that word, reciprocate. All it means is flip it. Okay? So reciprocal means it's the flip. So just like you saw down here, we're using a whole number, so we have to put a 1 on the bottom because we need to have fraction and fraction. Okay? All right, simplify. Simplifying happens when you're able to break it down and reduce it even more. Now, do you have to do it the way they're doing it? No. We could take this example right here, and we could do a cross simplification. So let's take this example right there, and we're going to cross simplify. So if I cross simplify this guy, is there anything between the 5 and the 15 that can reduce? Yes. What do 5 and 15 both divide by? 5. And then you get an answer of 3. You're giving me the answer. Yeah, so 15 becomes a 3, the 5 becomes a 1. What about between the 16 and the 8? Can I cross simplify? Yep, they both divide by 8. So the 8 becomes a 1, 16 becomes a 2. And that's how we get an answer of 2/3. Okay? They're showing us here the cross simplify. They're showing you what they're doing. Okay? All right, let's take a couple more examples here. So, what if you've got mixed fractions and decimals? Well, when you've got mixed numbers, the important thing you've got to remember is you've got to change them to improper. Okay? So changing mixed numbers to improper. Okay? So you're not able to change them or to multiply them unless they're in improper fractions. Okay? Note, if you are dividing or multiplying, you guys don't have this note, or is it in your notes? It is? Okay, good. Okay. So note 1 says, if you're multiplying or dividing fractions and decimals mixed together, you convert the decimal to a fraction form. Here is an example. Right down here. So, the example they've got right down here, 1.4, they're converting 1.4 into, right there, they're converting it into a mixed number. Then they convert it into improper. Okay, a reduced improper. Okay? Now, then they are going to multiply tops, multiply bottoms. That's your typical rule. We need to remember place value, because sometimes we're talking about round to the nearest 10, to the nearest 100. We need to know what those are. So, if I've got, here's 2 places, here's my decimal. This is our 1s, this is our 10s. The minute I'm on the right-hand side of the decimal, it starts going like this. You add a THS to it. So, this is 1/10, which is called the tenths. This is 1/100, which is the hundredths, THS on the end. Now, again, this is after the decimal. So, what would the next one be? 1/1000, thousandths. So all you're doing is adding a 0 every time you're moving to the right. You're adding a 0 to the bottom. Okay? So this is going to help us when we want to create fractions. So this right here, 1.4, 1.4 only had 1 number after the decimal. So that 4 they had to put on top of the number 10, because that's what the 10 is on the bottom. So that's where they got the 4/10 from. Okay? Does that make more sense? A little bit where the numbers come from? All right, let's take a look at a couple more examples. We're almost done. So, dividing. First thing we should always do is change them to what? Numbers. Impropers. And that's what they've done over here. So, if we take a look, what they've done is they've multiplied the 2 and then added the top number. The denominators stay the same. So they're going 3 times 5 plus 2. Some of you were forgetting to do that plus 2 on the top still. So, multiply, then add. So you get 17/3. You got? Oh, you got? Over here, 1 and 2 bits, you're going to multiply the 5 times the 1, and then add the 2. That's where they're getting the 7. Okay? Now, what if we have negative numbers we're dealing with? If we have negative numbers we're dealing with, this is what caused people yesterday on that before we checked that exit slip. Negative numbers, you forget the negative signs there until the very end, and then you throw a negative on. When you do that multiplying and adding, you don't use that negative. Okay? So if it was negative 5 2/3, I would forget the negatives there, and I would change it like that guy. So I'd multiply and add to give me 17/3. Then I'd go back and put the negative on. Okay? So you forget the negatives there until the very end, and you throw it back on. Okay? That's just dealing with negatives. So they changed to improper fractions. So we've got these guys in improper fractions now. So the second step is to flip in times. So they flip that 7 and 5 upside down. And then they change the divide sign to a times sign. Okay? Then you do your fraction rules. Times the tops, times the bottoms. Now, remember, look diagonally. Are there anything you can cross simplify? Between 17 and 7? No. What about 5 and 3? No. So we're just multiplying straight away, and we get our answer to reduce for. Okay? This guy, we've got a whole number multiplying to a mixed number. So our whole number instantly gets put into a fraction over 1. Okay, that's the first thing you're going to do. Then you change this guy to a improper fraction. So 5 times 1 plus 2 is going to give us our 7/5. Here's our 7/5 right there. Then we're just going to multiply our tops, multiply our bottoms. Now, if we look diagonally, do the 4 and the 5 have anything in common to divide by? No. So it's going to give us our answer to reduce for. Okay? Always check your cross cancel. Now we're dividing. Dividing, same idea. But this one, again, you need to put it in a fraction form. That's your first step. This guy here is changing to improper. So 20 plus 2 is going to give me my 22/5. Okay? There's our 22/5. Dividing by 3/1. You have to put this guy into a fraction. Now, the rule is, you flip the second fraction. That's called reciprocating. You reciprocate that fraction. Then our divide changes to multiply times. So this guy flipped upside down, and now we multiply straight across the top, straight across the bottom. So 22 times 1 gives us our 22. 5 times 3 gives us our 15. Okay? It's in lowest form. You can't go any further with that. Okay? All right, let's look at a couple more. Note 2, your final answer should not have a negative sign in the bottom. It will float to the top. This one's got it on the side. I want you to take that off and put it on the top number. It always goes to the top number. They had it just on the side there. It will actually float to the top. Okay? And simplify means to reduce your fraction always to lowest terms. So that's something with fractions we have to remember. Always reduce it to lowest form. Okay? All right. The next thing we have is lesson 5. We're going to jump into lesson 5 tomorrow. So this concludes lesson 2.4 on multiplying and dividing.